Hello and welcome to Desert Carnivores. In this episode, we'll be discussing general care and just some fun facts about the Venus flytrap. Okay, so moving on to watering conditions, I would just recommend honestly buying distilled water for them, or just honestly any water that could supply them with very low nutrients. So that could be rainwater, distilled water, like I mentioned, and then just make sure it doesn't have high salts or high chlorine or anything like that. And even then, there's some tap water that's safe for them, depending on where you live. You just would want to test it before you gave it to them, otherwise it may kill the plant. And that's another thing, just absolutely no tap water. Tap water will just be the fastest way to kill your plant. I'm serious when I say that. They do not like it. Like, the minerals will build up in the root system, and from there it will just destroy them and the plant will rot away, basically. Now when it comes to the soil type for these guys, it's pretty basic. You just need some peat moss, some perlite, and some sand, and there's a whole equation to how much parts you mix per other part, and I'll post that down in the description. And typically it's 2 parts peat, 1 part sand, 1 part perlite, and it produces a well-drained soil for them, and they usually thrive in it. Now, when you go to buy this stuff, make sure the sand is washed silica, so playbox sand works. And then the perlite should not have any additives to it, but sometimes it does, so just watch out for that. Make sure it has no fertilizer added to it, and the same with the peat. Make sure it has no fertilizer added to it. Make sure it's organic, just basically straight from the earth, nothing added to it. Now, when it comes to feeding, you don't have to actually feed these guys for them to be able to survive. It does help them grow faster and stronger, but it's not a necessity. As well as there's going to be some things that you're going to want to avoid feeding them. You do not want to feed them anything fatty. You do not want to feed them meat or any of that stuff. So you cannot give them hamburger. You cannot give them steak, chicken, or whatever. You need to they need to rely on insects mainly. That's what they evolved to eat in the wild, not a cow, okay? So you just feed it insects and it'll be happy. But most of the time, if you have it outside, it'll be fine. You don't have to give it anything. And even then, when you have it inside, it will still be fine because it doesn't need insects to survive. Like I said, these little basically nutrient packets with legs, they do help the plant grow faster and stronger. Most carnivorous plants that are temperate need dormancy. So in the winter, they'll go ahead and fall asleep and they'll retreat back into the ground basically. Now these guys, how they work is they have a rhizome at the bottom of the plant, and that's what they grow from, is a rhizome. And so they'll basically retreat back into the rhizome, and you may see very few little leaves to no leaves at all. And don't be alarmed at that. It's perfectly normal. The plant is just sleeping. It needs that rest to be able to grow strong and stuff in the summer. So it's not dead, so don't go throwing your plant out if it gets cold and it in the winter and it just starts retreating. It's not dead, so keep it. And in most zones, you can have them outside for dormancy, but some of them, if you're in Florida where it's hotter, you're gonna have to bring them inside for dormancy in the winter. So just put them in the fridge or something. In other zones where it may get too cold, you have to still do the same thing, because if it's too cold, it could kill them. So you just have to basically treat them like how you would a rose bush or something. In terms of dormancy. So some fun facts about these guys. They do know how to do math, meaning that the hairs inside their mouth, which they have, I believe it is 6 altogether in their mouth, and these little hairs actually count how many times an insect taps them. And so I don't remember the exact numbers, but basically let's go with so it gets hit twice. The hairs get hit twice by the insect, it primes the trap, and then hits the third time, it closes the trap. And then from beyond there, it still is doing math, because it counts how many times the insect moves inside, and then it determines whether or not to release digestive fluids. And once it does that, the whole process starts, and it absorbs those nutrients over about the span of a week. Another thing about these guys is that they flower in the summer, and when they do flower, you do not really want those flowers to stay on there, so typically I'd recommend cutting them off, unless you really do want seeds from them. And even then, like, it has to be a really healthy plant, and you have to still be kind of experienced with it, because they do, like, basically once the flower stalk grows, it drains all the nutrients and power from the plant, and basically it just makes it grow extremely smaller, and if not possibly killing the plant. And so I just recommend cutting off the flower stalk, because it allows bigger traps to grow, allows more growth, it allows it to just basically look like a whole pretty plant. And even then, you'll still get babies off of it. What it'll do is it'll produce like little divisions that will grow like as offshoots, and those will eventually grow roots themselves. And so when you go to repot them, you can just pull those divisions off, and they'll be their own plant. All in all, these plants are pretty easy to care for. They don't require much attention unless like you're really worried about them. But for the most part, this guy just sits outside, and he's happy just outside, and I barely ever intervene like in terms of caring for him. The rain's enough for him, and so he's pretty much there, and he takes care of himself. Now, in other conditions, they're still very basic and easy to grow if you're growing them inside. You do have to provide dormancy, though, for them inside as well. But basically, I'd recommend these 100% to beginner growers because of how basic and easy they are to care for. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate you taking your time to watch this. It's a passion of mine that I really enjoy, and I hope I taught you a few things. And if you have any other questions, just comment down below, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can, either for reply or in the next video. But I do hope you enjoyed, and I will continue making videos. And I realized that this one was a little bit shaky, and I'm sorry about that. I just don't have a tripod at the moment, but I'm working on getting one, and so hopefully the next video will be a lot better quality in terms of audio and everything, and entertainment.